morning, 7th grade. I hope you guys had a nice week last week. It should have been a pretty simple and easy week for you. We're back into our learning. We are starting week 5. It's Monday, April 20th. So I just wanted to take you through what you are responsible for today. Okay? So you're going to click on your classwork tab like usual. You'll see I uploaded an agenda for week 5. You can use that just kind of as a guideline for what you're expected to do each day this week. You're going to go down to week 5, day 1, April 20th, and click on your lesson. So with your lesson today, there is a website that you can go to as another resource, just as a review of what we're learning today. But here is your lesson, so you're going to click on it. Okay, your warm-up is to think about the linear functions that we were going over before we were not in school. So we were focusing on that equation, y equals mx plus b. You guys are doing really well with that. So we're going to take this understanding and apply it to our target, which is to identify and represent proportional relationships in tables and equations. All right, so if we scroll down, we go over the equation. We remind ourselves what m is, which is our slope, right? It describes the slope of the line, the steepness of the line. And then we have b, which is our y-intercept, and that describes where the line crosses the y-axis. So then we do a few review examples. So we have our equation y equals mx plus b. Sometimes they're going to just give you an m and a b, like here. And they're going to ask you to write the equation. So what you do is you take, I'm just getting my markers. You take the equation, y equals mx plus b, and you're going to plug in what they give you for m in place of m, and what they give you for b in place for b. So let's see, our equation would now be, if m was negative 3, it would be y equals, I would put negative 3 in place of m, so negative 3, and then after m, x always follows, so negative 3x. And then since my b is negative, I'm not going to write plus negative 1, because remember, we don't like double negatives. We would just make that negative 1 or minus 1, like that. Okay, so this is how we started off with our linear functions, given an m and a b, writing the equation. Then sometimes they're going to give you an equation like here, y equals 2 minus 3x, and they're going to ask you, what is m and what is b? So in order to do that, you have to remember m is always the term that's next to x. So in this equation, the term that's next to x is going to be negative 3. Remember, we take the sign that's in front of the number. So since it's minus, that makes 3 a negative 3. So our m is negative 3, and our b is always the number by itself. So our b is going to be 2. All right, so that's just a quick review of the equation, remembering what the m and the b are in both of those. The lesson has you practice a few more, and the answers follow. So you have the answers there to go over. Then we go over how to find the equation in y equals mx plus b form from the table. So I have that same table here. And in order to find the equation, the first thing you want to do is find the constant. So, step 1, find the constant. That is when you find the change in y over the change in x. Remember that triangle means change, right? It's the Greek letter delta. It means change. So we're looking to see the pattern. So what's happening to our y's in this table? What do you see constantly happening? So what I notice is that my y's are constantly increasing by plus 8. Okay, so that's going to be my numerator for my slope. My numerator is going to be 8. I'm going to actually just slide that over a little to the left. Okay, then I look on my x's. What's the pattern I see happening in my x column? Well, I see that it's constantly increasing by plus 2. So since it's constantly increasing by plus 2, I only need to write one slope, which is going to be 8 over 2. And I always simplify if possible. So 8 over 2 reduces to 4 over 1. Or we could just write it as 4. Okay? And that's going to be what my m is. So my m is 4 for this table. Okay? Then step 2, we have to find our b. So b is always when y equals 0. So if we're lucky enough, we can go into our table. If we see, I'm sorry, I messed up. B is always the y value when x equals 0. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so if we're lucky enough and our table includes x equal to 0, then that value with 0 is going to be our y-intercept. So if I look in my table and I go down the x column, I see I have a 0, so my b is going to be 1. It's always the y value that is next to 0. So for this example, b is going to equal 1. Okay? So we have our m, we have our b, and then the last thing you do, step 3, you write your equation. And your equation would always be in the form y equals mx plus b. So we're going to plug in our values. So I'm going to write y equals, m is 4, so y equals 4, x always follows the m, and then b is 1, so plus 1 because it's a positive 1. And that's it, okay? So this is a review of finding the equation from the table. Step 1, you find your change in y over your change in x. You simplify if possible. Step 2, you find your intercept, which is always when x is 0, the y value that's with it. And then step 3, you plug it into the equation y equals mx plus b. Again, this is all just a review of things that we already did in March when we were looking at this topic, but it's a good foundation for what we're moving forward with, okay? So we went over the equation, we went over the table, and now last but not least, we're gonna go over the graph. So I'm gonna erase this so it's not distracting. Okay. So I made the graph already that you guys will see in your second review example. I picked this one because there are no clear points to review how to do that. Okay. So if we are given a graph, this is a linear function because it's a straight line. We can find the equation in y equals mx plus b form. So step 1, if you guys remember, we're going to find 2, we call them nice points, right? Nice points are points that lie exactly in the corner of the 4 boxes. You can figure out that ordered pair. You don't want to pick a point that's kind of like floating. Like, I wouldn't pick this point because, see, it's not a clear point. It's not a nice point. So I'm going to pick the coordinates. I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to pick this one. Okay? So we find those 2 nice points to find our slope, which again is going to be the change in y over the change in x. And this is always whether you are going up or down, and then we always run to the right. Okay, if you guys remember, it was rise over run. Okay, so in this example, we always read our graphs from left to right. I'm going to start at this point because it's furthest to the left, and to get to this point, I'm going to have to move downwards. So I count. I'm going down 1, 2. So my rise is going to be -1 because I had to go, I'm sorry, -2, because I had to go down 2. Okay? So I'm going to write that here. M equals -2 over, how many did I have to run? Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right. So my run is 4. And then again, like before, if you can simplify, you always want to. So my slope simplified would be -1 over 2. Okay? Now, to write the equation, we don't just need an m, we also need a b. So step 2, to find b, it's wherever the line crosses the y-axis. So we go to our graph. I'm going to go to the y-axis. This is my y, this is x, right? So I go to my y-axis and I just go down until I see where is this line hitting my y-axis. It's hitting right here. So if this is 0, then my y-intercept is going to be 1, 2. It's crossing at 2 on the y-axis. So for this one, b equals 2. Okay? So now that I have my m And now that I have my b, I can write the equation. Remember, our equation is always in the form y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to plug in the numbers we have. So this equation would be y equals m is negative 1/2. X always follows your slope. And b is 2. And it's a positive, so plus 2. And that is the equation of the line. Okay? So again, the first thing we did was find 2 nice points. We found that slope by counting how many up or down. In this case, it was down, so negative 2. And then run 4. Our slope was negative 2 over 4, but simplified as negative 1 over 2. We then found our intercept, which was wherever the line crossed the y-axis, which was at 2. And then we took that information and plugged it into our equation. Okay? So again, this should be just a review for you guys. Again, we did do this in class together, and you guys were doing really well with it. This was our last topic we were covering before we left. So with that understanding, there's a special type of linear relationship, which is called a proportional relationship. So proportional relationships are linear relationships. They just have 2 specific characteristics. In order to be proportional, you must have a constant, which is your slope, and include 0, 0. If this relationship does not include 0, 0, if it does not go through the origin, then it is not proportional. It would only be linear. Okay? So in order to be proportional, you need to have a constant and include 0, 0. That is your big takeaway for today. So here's some more vocabulary. When we talk about a constant with proportional relationships, we call it K instead of M. And this is what the equation looks like. We'll get into this more later this week, but it's good to just keep that in the back of your head as we move forward. Some more vocabulary. Okay, so here's the first example. So they give you this table, and the way you check if it's proportional or not is step 1. You check for a constant. You guys were excellent at this. This is when you check what is the pattern in y. The pattern in y is plus 2. So that's 2 in your numerator. What is the pattern in x? The pattern in x is plus 1. That is our denominator. So our constant is 2. So does this table have a constant? Yes. Good. Now, once you check if it has a constant, you check for 0, 0. So you look in your table. Does it include 0, 0? It does not. It includes 0, 1. So 0, 0 is not included in this table. So therefore, it has a constant. It does not include 0, 0. So you state your conclusion. This table is not proportional because it doesn't include 0, 0. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Check if it has a constant, check if it includes 0, 0. If one of those 2 are not satisfied, then you cannot say it's proportional. Let's look at another one. Here are the steps I just took you through. Please take note of those. Okay, so here, step 1, check if there's a constant. So we go to our y. Do we notice a pattern? Yes, I notice a pattern. In y, it's plus 9, and in x, it's plus 1. So my constant would be 9 over 1 or simply 9. So yes, it has a constant. Check. Check if 0, 0 is included. So I go to my table. Here's 0. The y is 0. So check. Yes, 0 is included. So my conclusion would be this table is proportional because it has a constant of 9 and includes 0, 0. And that's it, guys. That's all it is. You just keep checking those 2 things. If both are satisfied, it's proportional. Okay? There's a few more for you to go through, and then you're going to complete this one, the U-Try, in your Google form. So I'm going to X out of this, show you that, show you what you have left to do for the day. You have your classwork assignment, which is what you just saw. It's your U-Do. So it's a Google form. You're going to do the same thing. It's going to give you a table. You're going to check, is it proportional? So you look to see if there's a constant, and then you look to see if 0, 0 is included. You would click yes or no, is it proportional or not? and then you explain how you knew. Explaining it would just be because the table has a constant and includes 0, 0. If it's not proportional and you have to explain how you know, then you just say because the table does not include a constant or does not include 0, 0. Okay, so that's that, and then you have an exit ticket, which is exactly the same thing as your you do. It's just a quick assessment for us to make sure that you really understood it. I believe it's just 4 questions. Yep. Okay. All right, I hope that helps, guys. I hope you're all staying safe, and I will talk to you more tomorrow. Have a great day.